Welcome back to the shop here at Basin Motorsports. I'm Canaan. So today I'm going to show you the process to make a set of resin coasters. And in that I'm going to be using some carbon fiber in there. And I'm going to use some Pigment from Eye Candy Pigments. This is what the final product will look like. This is a sample set I did previously. There are round and square coasters. You can see there I have some silicone molds that I bought. These do well for holding it. My mixing cup. I'm going to be using a resin and hardener from Venom Carbon. And then we're going to choose something out of the pack here from Eye Candy Pigments. So I've got a lot of different options here. I've got some pinks, I've got some oranges, got a lot there. So I'm going to choose something out of here and then we'll go forth. So some of my samples today are going to be red fiberglass, blue fiberglass, white fiberglass, chopped forged carbon pieces. And then I've got some purple cloth and some red cloth to try. So I'm going to make a few resin coasters out of this stuff. We'll see what turns out. All right, so now we're going to mix in some Eye Candy Pigment. Now this is a watermelon color, so this is going to be kind of weird to go over carbon fiber, but that's the point of doing all this. Now I've got it, I tried to measure it on my digital scale here with some parchment paper to see if it'll go in there a little bit easier. This is about half the sample pack, so this is probably about 2 ounces, 2.5 ounces, something like that. Let's go ahead and mix this in. So this is watermelon. Mix into our resin here. And really, it's almost got a gold tint to it. I'm gonna say gold, at least in this lighting. Now the way I did these before was to put in just enough to cover the base bottom here. And then I went ahead and started adding in my composite, whether it's fiberglass or carbon fiber. So we will go ahead and do the same thing. I'm just going to pour it out of here a little bit. It's kind of a fun color though, isn't it? All I'm trying to do is just fill in the base. All right, now we'll start adding in our composites. So I'll just start with a little bit of red here. I just want to put in enough to get a good surface amount because I want all of this composite to be embedded inside of the resin. So you can't go too heavy on it. It's easier to go in a little bit at a time and then kind of spread it around just to see what it comes out. One thing I found is that it will kind of ride on the top, so you can just use your popsicle stick, and you want to make sure it's wet with resin so the fiberglass doesn't really stick. If it's, so it's drippy, you'll have resin that will stick to it, so just kind of push it down in there. Now you can always add in a little bit more if you find you just don't have the same color, because it almost blanks it out a little bit, but you want the red or whatever the composite color is to come through. And then once you have a good mix in there, you're just going to add in a little bit more resin just to make sure it encapsulates all of your composite and it gives a good clean top surface. All right, so this last one here, we're going to go ahead and use some of our Venom Carbon forged carbon. Uses this chopped carbon here, and with this I'm just going to go ahead and sprinkle it by hand. You've kind of seen the way the others are. They do have a tint, a hue to them, if you would call it that. That's really just based on what's being in there. Now a lot of these, the way I do it, you get it kind of mixed down to where the base of it is, and when you flip them over, basically when they cure out, you peel the mold off and you flip them over, and the bottom, what's touching the bottom of your mold is actually your top. So with this, if it's not perfect on the top, you can do your best to get it right, but sometimes you have flaws or anything else that shows up, a bubble or two, and that's okay, because typically this is going to be the bottom of the coaster anyway. All right, here's a good look at what we are dealing with. You have your top left, which is the red fiberglass. Top right is blue fiberglass. The bottom left is white, and the bottom right is the black chopped carbon fiber. So each of them have a little bit different hue. You can just kind of get a hint of what's inside. The the red versus the blue. The white is a little bit brighter. At least it is here. It may not be on camera. And then the bottom right, you can definitely tell, has a darker tint to it because of the black carbon fiber in it. Now we're going to let these sit for 48 hours. We'll show you what the results are. All right, now these are set 48 hours, so let's go ahead and look at our finished coasters, or what we're going to call the molded coasters. So remember, this is a red, a blue, a white, and a black. So let's start with our red. This is going to pop out of the mold pretty easily. Just kind of pop it out. Ooh, there you go. There's some red fiber, and if I kind of get a little closer, you can see it's got a little bit of, I want to call it gold, but it's the watermelon color, right? But it's got a nice mix in here, like a red and gold tint to it. Let's look at our blue. Same thing, pops out. A little bit of a gold tint to it. A little bit of white here. Pop it out. Looking pretty interesting, right? And then we'll look at our forged carbon here. So there's our chopped carbon. Now it's got definitely more of a glitter to it with the carbon in it than it does with the fiberglass pieces. But that's a nice kind of a gold black coloring. Very interesting stuff. Now the question always is, what do you do with these after these are formed? Well, a lot of people will take them and they may put a top coat on them. They could do a clear coat. You can take these and you could, if there's any kind of imperfections on this side, now remember this is the top that you pour from. You could take this, lay some sandpaper down, even like 1,000 grit, just a sheet, and just kind of do some wet sanding so you can put the piece you want to do on, go on top, and then you can just kind of rub it around. So you'd be like this. You'd rub it around. That way you get a nice even pressure here and you can kind of see where your high spots are and get this sanded down. Now from there, you can go ahead and put on something like a backing, if you would call it, something maybe that's kind of skid proof. You can do a rubberized coating. I mean, there's a lot of different options you can do with these things. But once you have these done, they're kind of fun to do. They're decorative, obviously, but you know, if you're going to do it as a business venture, it's a good opportunity. Plenty of colors through Eye Candy Pigments. And then Venom Carbon, of course, it has carbon, the hybrid carbon with the hybrid materials that I've used before, the purples and the blues and everything else. And you can kind of just make it up as you go along. So if you have any questions, go ahead and check the video description down below. I do have links over to Venom Carbon and to Eye Candy Pigments. And that's it from this time. Thanks for stopping by. Go ahead and get yourself some of these coaster molds. Make yourself some fun stuff using some pigments and some resin. We'll see you next time.